Tetsuo the Iron Man is one of the most fucked up movies I've ever seen, while also simultaneously being one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Seriously, this movie is a roller coaster of emotions, and I've seen House, which is honestly about on par with Tetsuo. But Tetsuo just evokes this feeling, like a real sense of animosity and viscera to the way it's shot, edited, and paced. This movie offers very little dialogue. It wants you to feel it more than listen to it, and boy, do you feel it. I mean, not even 20 minutes in is the viewer treated to drill dick over there, and we haven't even gotten to the plot yet. So, going off of IMDb, the synopsis reads, a businessman accidentally kills the metal fetishist, who gets his revenge by slowly turning the man into a grotesque hybrid of flesh and rusty metal. So as you can tell, we're dealing with some sophisticated stuff here. But in all seriousness, that is a very literal translation of what happens, beat for beat, and I believe Tetsuo has a lot more going on under the hood. Tetsuo was directed by and starred a man named Shinya Tsukamoto, who prior to working on the movie made a couple short films on a Super 8 camera and was part of a handful of theater productions at his college, which many he would direct and star in as well. The theater group he had started up in college would have many of the actors contributing their talents to Tetsuo the Iron Man. In fact, the idea for Tetsuo was based off of a play Shinya Tsukamoto produced, directed, and starred in called The Adventures of the Electric Rod Boy. A lot of these early lessons in theater production would lay the groundwork for what would be Tsukamoto's breakout cult classic, Tetsuo. Shot on 16mm, the film itself took heavy inspiration from David Lynch's Eraserhead and 1988's Akira, donning a steel-cold black and white veneer and nightmarish imagery with more than a dash of body horror and a cyberpunk twist. Tetsuo would rival even that of Cronenberg's nastiest.
Shit, Negro, that's all you had to say.
Aside from the cinematography, a lot of the VFX used in the film are akin to stop motion, except with real people. Numerous sequences of body transformation, destruction, and a high-speed chase through Tokyo utilize this method of filming because Tsukamoto had no other options of achieving these effects due to a very limited budget and a constantly changing cast and crew. Which brings us to the production of Tetsuo. Just to give you an idea of how hellish production was on the film, Shinya Tsukamoto almost notoriously destroyed the negatives because the overall experience of making this left such a bitter aftertaste when production wrapped. The process of filming took a grueling 18 months, and with each passing month, more and more of the crew bled out. Things got so bad on set that Tomohiro Taguchi, the actor playing the leading role, had to do lighting for many of Tsukamoto's scenes because all of the lighting crew had abandoned production. Much of the problems Tetsuo faced stem from a large portion of the cast and crew living on set, which also happened to be Fujiwara's apartment, the actress who plays Taguchi's girlfriend in the film. More than likely, the small environment needed to house a cast and crew led to volatile relationships on and off screen. However, despite such a rigorous process it took to make this film, the end result is what I and many others consider to be a masterpiece and staple in the cyberpunk horror genre. Which finally brings me to what exactly Tetsuo the Iron Man is trying to say. Despite the very literal synopsis IMDb or Google will give you, in my eyes, Tetsuo serves as a piece to warn the audience of an ever-evolving threat of obsession with technology, and with it the accessibility to media that may be too provocative or harsh for certain audiences at the time. Now, what the fuck does that even mean? Well, let's start where the film starts. We begin with the metal fetishist, as we see him living out in a small dingy apartment, surrounded by heaps of scrap metal and magazine cutouts of NBA players adorning the piles of junk. Upon finding a metal pipe, he splits open his thigh with a knife and inserts the metal piping into the wound, as we see all the NBA player cutouts burn away. However, before jamming the piece of rebar into himself, we see him running the cylindrical hunk of metal in between his mouth, and you can hear the rungs graze against his teeth. The sound design and shot composition in the scene is excellent. It's a really effective way to show what this character is about without uttering a single word of dialogue, and also manages to really get under the skin of the audience. Many other scenes throughout the film approach this method of show don't tell, which is perfect for a film of this nature. After inserting a piece of rebar into his leg, the metal fetishist passes out of exhaustion, only to awaken to a maggot-infested rotting wound. Shocked by this, he frantically panics, runs out of his apartment until he finds himself running into oncoming traffic, only to get hit by a car. The film slows down as the camera cascades on the headlights of the vehicle, and etched into the headlights are the words "New World." This is our introduction into Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo the Iron Man. To me, the opening sequence to Tetsuo resembles an unhealthy infatuation of technology, almost to the point of it being fetishized, henceforth the character name, the metal fetishist. Him jamming hunks of metal into himself is but a very physical personification of this infatuation, and the shot of all the cutouts being burned away is supposed to resemble the relinquishment of humane and worldly desires or goals. When the metal fetishist is evidently killed in a car crash and we see the words "New World" etched into the headlights, that to me is Tsukamoto trying to convey how as technology progresses, we become more dominated by it, almost to a point where the lines between humanity and technology are blurred and even more so intertwined, which is why the characters in the film become more and more overtaken by metal. In other words, ushering a new world of metal or technology onto man, which isn't too far off from the metal fetishist's motivations.
もうすぐあなたは脳まで金属になる。お土産に面白いもの見せましょう。ニューワールドだ。
But why tell a story of obsession in such a violent and sexualized way? Well, depicting certain subject matters in a violent or sexualized manner isn't something new when it comes to film, or even the larger majority of different forms of entertainment media. Funny Games, RoboCop, A Clockwork Orange, and hell, even Tarantino himself have tackled the subject matter of violence and sexual content in film. It just so happens that in Tetsuo, it plays more into the physicality and actions in the movie, rather than being so upfront about it.
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because it's so much fun, Chan. Get it?
A scene in particular pops into mind when talking about this is when our protagonist, appropriately credited as just a man, is feeding his girlfriend only to hear the sounds of metal scraping and crunching as she eats. When just a few moments later she is killed via drill dick. Once again, Tsukamoto's usage of sight and sound shows us rather than telling what exactly is happening, and what is happening is the movie displaying the character's struggle with temptation. Obsession is nothing without its urges, and this scene is a literal showcase of the internal battle that would plague any individual with an addiction, only of course in this instance, our hero succumbs to his urges. As bleak and cruel as it may seem, the harsh undertone Tsukamoto is trying to get across is that just like the characters in the film are infatuated by metal or technology, so is the viewer indulging the hyperbolic usage of violence or sex in the film. In my eyes, the broader meaning at hand is that as technology becomes more and more widespread, so does the availability of explicit and or graphic content. Movies, video games, television, the internet, all of which are extensions of technology and now the entertainment space, contain mediums that aren't suitable for an audience that isn't mature. Now, does that mean fictional violence or sexual content in movies or anything of that nature is this addictive and unhealthy indulgence? No, fuck no. Just ask Quentin.
And you're all messed up because you're talking about real life.
Oh,
and I'm
I see.
talking
And kids
about
at
the
12?
movies.
But put in the wrong hands, it can be just as intoxicating and negative. The characters in Tetsuo reflect that. People who don't have any form of moderation or restraint and in the end become obsessed only to result in negative repercussions on themselves and those around them. Man, woman with glasses, and the metal fetishists are all broad names given to the characters in the film because they aren't characters. They could be anyone who has fallen into the entrapment of a compulsive and obsessive nature towards anything. It's the main reason why the film is hailed by its niche audience as a masterpiece in filmmaking, offering what only so many directors hope to convey to any moviegoer, a message.